Hi guys, welcome and who dat? Today I'm going to be looking at the depth chart of the New Orleans Saints roster currently. We're going to take a look at it and we're going to talk about our strengths, our weaknesses, and where some of these rookies and undrafted rookies may fit in to the roster. So, I don't have anything planned. I'm just pulling up the roster and I'm going to look at it. And I need the glasses for that. Um, I went to NewOrleansSaints.com and the roster was incomplete. A lot of the undrafted rookies weren't listed yet. Uh, they still had Taysom Hill as a quarterback. And when I looked at the depth chart on NewOrleansSaints.com, it must have last been updated during the season last year because Teron Armstead was on there and Pete wasn't Andres Pete wasn't mentioned, so I'm assuming that was when he was hurt. And when I went to NFL.com, apparently they just copy and paste from the official team's roster and depth chart. So I had to go to ESPN.com to get the most updated roster and depth chart. I think that's interesting. But that's the way it is. So that's what I'm going to put up here, and I do my own graphics. So sorry about the cheese and all, but so let's take a look at it. First, the offense. I think our biggest weakness before the offseason, in everyone's opinion, was wide receiver. A lot of the guys got some experience last year, so and a lot of them are very young, so they could possibly be a lot better this year. And, we've also upgraded by adding Michael Thomas back into the roster and drafting Chris Olave. So the next biggest weakness has got to be the offensive line. We addressed that in the draft by getting Trevor Penning to a degree, but I still believe the guard position is a spot of weakness in our backups, who once again got a lot of playing time last year. Um, Sometimes they did okay, and sometimes they didn't. And the tight end group is pretty unproven and unspectacular. So let's take a look at this. First, at quarterback, we got Jameis Winston, backup Andy Dalton, and Ian Book. Poor Ian got a start last year in the COVID game versus Miami. That was the worst the Saints offense has ever looked. I don't judge Ian Book too harshly on that one performance. He had the worst offensive line setup that we went into a game with last year. So, but Dalton is a serviceable guy. I think at his age, if he had to come in and play a couple of games, he could be serviceable, much like Winston was for us early on in his Saints career. I would expect, not a lot of yards, trying to take care of the ball and just trying not to lose the game. But our starter, Jameis Winston, former first round pick, he's got all the abilities in the world. He's comparable athletically to some of the best in the league. Everybody wants to know if he can put it all together. So, if you look at Winston's career with the Buccaneers, his numbers are pretty good. Of course, the reflection is the teams didn't have much success overall. So, as far as Jameis Winston being a top tier quarterback, not a lot of people are going to agree with that. But they will agree that he has all of the abilities. So, Jameis Winston, who, experienced a lot of change as far as coaching goes in his life, comes to New Orleans where he gets pretty much groomed by Sean Payton and Drew Brees, a school for quarterbacks. And in Winston's first appearance as a starter, he did okay. He protected the ball, which was the biggest concern everyone had. He didn't put up a lot of yards, but he's shown in the past in his career that he can accumulate a ton of yards. And his completion percentage wasn't that great, though in his career it has been okay. So I think Winston's just learning a new system and trying to get, his feet under him. And with a brand new head coach this year, there may be some bumps and bruises along the way this year. But ultimately, what I'm getting at with Winston is if we can get the best version of Winston, and you look at his career, it's a pretty good quarterback. I'm expecting that we're going to get the best version of Winston that we've ever seen in his career because I think this system, once he's acclimated to it, can be more productive for him than what he's experienced in the past. I mean, would you rather dump the ball off to Ronald Jones or to Alvin Kamara? That's, where I'm going at with this. So at quarterback, I'm fine. A lot of veterans that you can pick up if something happens as far as injuries go, but that's quarterback. Now we go to running back, Alvin Kamara, of course, will probably be suspended this year. I'm expecting him to miss 6 games. That's my pessimistic view of it. Nothing's been determined yet. When healthy and on the field, Alvin Kamara is one of the best playmakers in the league. And without Alvin Kamara, we don't really win games. That's the way it's gone since he's been on our team. Mark Ingram, the great veteran backup, who is going to come in and spell Kamara as more of a between the tackles pounder. And he's late in his career, so I don't expect Ingram to get a ton of carries. I don't think that that's good for him or for the team. So behind him is Tony Jones Jr., who basically beat out Latavius Murray last year for that third running back spot. We also have Dwayne Washington and Josh Adams. So, in order for our undrafted rookie, Abram Smith out of Baylor, to make the team, he's going to have to beat out Dwayne Washington and Josh Adams. Dwayne Washington does a lot for us on special teams. And Tony Jones Jr., who came on very strong in preseason as a undrafted rookie last year, wasn't as spectacular in the real games when he was forced to play a part. So Abram Smith has a chance here to make the roster. I think, there's a chance Abram Smith could be our third back if Tony Jones Jr. doesn't show, some improvement. But as it stands now, with Kamara out for 6 games, which is what I'm assuming, I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Saints' running attack. Now, I'm hoping Abram shows us something. I'm hoping Tony Jones Jr. turns a corner. And I'm hoping Mark Ingram still has some tread left on the tires. Because 6 games is a large chunk of the season. And I think the production of the running game is going to determine how good we are as an offense. It really will. The best the Saints have ever looked came with a very strong running game. So, cautiously optimistic that when Kamara is in the game, we're going to be pretty good. But we have a chunk next year we're going to have to focus on without Kamara. So, fingers crossed. Let's look at the wide receivers. To have Michael Thomas and Chris Olave at the top of the chart is a far cry from last year when it was Marcus Callaway and Deonte Hardy. Traquan Smith was out for a large chunk of last year, and when Traquan came back, it was Callaway and Traquan Smith, and that wasn't much better. The thing is, I got to give props to Callaway. As an undrafted rookie, he was forced into a starting role and not only made the team and looked great in preseason and earned that role, but his numbers weren't that bad. They were really good for an undrafted rookie, especially if he would have been, our third or fourth wide receiver. It's just a lot to ask of an undrafted guy to go out there and to compete against cornerbacks number one or cornerbacks number two from every team every week. Michael Thomas is one of the best receivers in the league, and I think even three-fourths of a Michael Thomas is a pretty good starter for you. And I think our top draft pick, Chris Olave, is coming into the best situation a rookie receiver could come into. You're not forced to be our number one. We are expecting you to perform. We are expecting you to play a ton. We're expecting you to produce. A lot of people are complaining about how much we gave up for Chris Olave. And in a past video, I explained how I looked at that trade with the Eagles. We made a couple of moves there. I don't think you can attribute just one first round pick this year and say, hey, we gave up all of that for that one pick. No, no, we moved up from 18 to 16, and we also acquired number 19 overall. So there were several moves made. Personally, my belief is we went from 18 to 16. That cost us a third round pick. And then we went from 16 to 11, which cost us a third round and a fourth round pick. So I don't look at it the way everybody else does. It's still a big investment for one player. Ultimately, that's what all of this comes down to. We also have the defensive tackle taken in the sixth round, which was part of that Eagles trade as well. So, we got a long way to go before we see exactly how effective all of this movement was before acquiring Chris Olave, who I think is going to start for us alongside Thomas this year and be pretty good. Having Callaway or Traquan Smith as your number three is right where those players need to be. Deonte Hardy offers so much as a wide receiver. Another undrafted guy who was too small to play wide receiver, according to everyone in the league, but is an explosive special teams player. And he went to the Pro Bowl as a return specialist in his rookie year as an undrafted rookie. And when he got a chance to play at wide receiver, he was pretty effective. His speed has to be accounted for. And if he's tough enough to come back to the quarterback or go across the middle or on the inside, which he was able to do with the quickness, he gets a little bit of separation, and Hardy did okay. I mean, we're talking about two very young players in Callaway and Hardy who showed up. I like little Jordan Humphrey. I love the size. He's another guy kind of like Jawan Johnson who could probably transfer to tight end. He's so big. But there must be some things there that the team isn't comfortable with, or he would get more playing time. So you also see Kwan Baker and Aesop Winston Jr., who got some playing time last year as well. Those are the guys that are going to be competing for a spot alongside DeJean Dixon and Shaheed, the undrafted rookies this year. It's going to be a tall task for these undrafted rookies to crack the roster here now that we have Michael Thomas and Chris Olave as our penciled in starters. Callaway and Smith and Hardy with all of that experience last year. Jalen McCleskey is a special teamer, much like the undrafted guy, and from this year, and then Kevin White, who was a very high draft pick for another team, and is just so inconsistent. but their size and ability there, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Shaheed or for Dixon to crack this lineup. It's going to be tough for McCleskey to crack this lineup, especially with Deonte Hardy being so effective as a returner. If we want to increase Hardy's playing time on offense and put some of the burden on somebody else, maybe we keep a undrafted guy, a special teamer, a returner, Shaheed. But Hardy, I think, is just too good in that role. So that's the wide receivers. We're going to go to tight end now. An unproven bunch to say the least. Adam Troutman, great run blocker. We were expecting too much from him as a pass catcher last year. Taysom Hill, on the other hand, is an excellent pass catcher, and he has played a ton at tight end. He's big enough to block. He's fast enough to outrun a safety or a linebacker. So I expect Taysom Hill to be a pretty productive guy at tight end for us. Nick Vannett is also a veteran with plenty of experience, okay in the passing game, pretty good in the run blocking game. And Juwan Johnson, who's just a big wide receiver, and he's got a lot of work that he has to do. We played him at tight end all year last year, and he had a nice little chemistry in the red zone with Winston for a while there. Juwan Johnson is an excellent red zone presence for us as a receiving tight end. We just need to work on that run blocking. Oh, we also have Nick Kroll, the undrafted guy, who may challenge for a spot here. Ian Holtz from the Bears is also an addition at tight end we made, who has played plenty of special teams. So there's a chance Holtz can make this team as well. Overall, a weak group in general for the offense. But that all depends on Taysom Hill's production and Adam Troutman's continued growth. We have one fullback on the roster right now, Adam Prentice. The Saints are pretty good when it comes to fullback. We play a lot of fullback, and we've gone through a ton of them in the last 15 years. And just about every one of them that we've signed has been a very productive guy. So Adam Prentice is our only fullback right now. Let's look at the offensive line. This is where I get a little concerned. I'm penciling in Trevor Penning as the starting left tackle right now. He's going to have to beat out James Hurst, and that's not going to be easy. Hurst is a good player at tackle, and he's a pretty good player at guard. There were times when Hurst had to start at guard, right guard, when Eric McCoy went down at center and Ruiz moved over to center. James Hurst played right guard for a while. Then he was forced to play left guard when Pete went out, and that gave Calvin Throckmorton the chance to show what he could do as an undrafted offensive lineman. Now, as long as Hurst and Throckmorton were at the guard positions with Ruiz in the middle, it was pretty iffy in the middle there. McCoy came back. Ruiz was able to kick back out to guard. And Throckmorton had to play some left guard because Hurst had to take Teron Armstead's place. And Armstead was in and out of the lineup all year. When James Hurst was at left tackle, he did fine. But when Ryan Ramczyk at right tackle got hurt, that's when things went nuts. I believe in the COVID game, Landon Young had to miss that game with all the other COVID players. So our starter at right tackle was Jordan Mills. I think his name is Jordan. He is not on the depth chart right now. That was a rough game. I mean, you had Hurst and Throckmorton and Mills playing offensive line. It was embarrassing. Um, like I say, if only one person's out on the offensive line and you have to plug in a James Hurst for a couple of games, you're okay. If you have to plug in Throckmorton in a couple of games, I think you're okay. I want to see a big improvement by Landon Young, who was a draft pick for us last year. Um, he was forced into some playing last year as well. He was the sixth offensive lineman for a game or two. Everybody across the board at some point or another had to deal with an injury. Ethan Grinridge, he had some playing time last year. I'm not sure if Forrest Lamp played last year. I believe he did. And Cole Cabral, the extra center there, I don't remember seeing him last year. So there's your starters. I'm going to say Penning, Andres Pete, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Ryan Ramczyk. As a Saints fan, you guys know Andres Pete, Cesar Ruiz. That's There are times when they look okay. There's times when Pete plays like a Pro Bowler, and then there are times when they're off. And especially Ruiz, who's really just young, and he's had a couple of years now, and now he's got Doug Marrone as his coach. So we'll see if there's some improvement there. I'm hoping Trevor Penning can stick at left tackle. If anyone gets hurt across the board, James Hurst would be the ideal plug and play guy. And I'm not sure about Cabral at center, but I really think we need another backup center. We need another backup guard, somebody that's better than a Throckmorton, who's an undrafted guy. We got 4 undrafted offensive linemen this year that we just signed. We'll see if anyone can compete and take a spot from either Grinridge or Lamp or Throckmorton. But offensive line, which I'm usually very excited about for the Saints in recent memory, is kind of iffy. But at their best, when Pete's playing at a Pro Bowl level, if Trevor Penning can put something on the field that's, a slightly better than a James Hurst, if Cesar Ruiz can just be a good offensive lineman, and Eric McCoy and Ramczyk play at their all-world Pro Bowl levels, then then the offensive line will be okay. But we do need depth. I think we need better depth at guard. Let's take a look at the defense now, which is, of course, the strength of the team, and the only way the Saints are going to do anything in the postseason this year. And I look at this defense, and I'm pretty excited. This is pretty good stuff. Let's look at the defensive line first. Let's look at the end position. Cameron Jordan, who's multiple Pro Bowl, great defensive end. He is getting at the end of his career here, but at the beginning of last year, towards the middle of last year, we were wondering if Cameron Jordan hadn't fallen off and reached a sort of a decline in his career. But he came on very strong at the end of the year, so strong that he put up Pro Bowl numbers ultimately in the end. And once again, everyone realizes Cameron Jordan can't be counted out to affect a game and be one of the best defensive linemen in the game who demands attention from opposing offenses. Across the line from him at right end, Marcus Davenport, who's got all the ability and the talent, probably the most talented defensive lineman we have. When he puts it all together, it is great to watch. And yeah, he's the best defensive lineman on the field when he's putting it together. He has to stay healthy. As our backup defensive ends, we've got Carl Granderson, who had a ton of starts last year and who's been a pretty good player. And also Peyton Turner, our first round draft pick from last year. Peyton Turner hasn't had a chance to show us anything. He played 5 games last year. He kicked inside a defensive tackle a little bit when he did play last year as well. Then you've got Passignon, who to me is just an excellent addition. This guy can start for us if any of the ends get out for a couple of games due to injury. Passignon can kick inside and play defensive tackle. He's between 6'5" and 6'7". He's just a massive man, gets his arms up, can really affect the passer from different spots on the field. I love Passignon. I think having Passignon as our 5th defensive end is going to make it tough for anybody else to make this team at defensive end. Jordan Jackson, who we drafted in the 6th round this year, is primarily defensive tackle, but he's a tweener and he can play end too. He'll get a chance to show what he could do at end, but like I say, when it comes to game time, unless there's injuries, I don't see Jordan Jackson or anybody else taking the field over Peyton Turner, Carl Granderson, or Passignon. And then, of course, Taco Charlton, who was a highly drafted player and has bounced around the league. He hasn't been able to put it all together, but he's going to get a chance. And since he's a first-round pick, going against a guy like Carl Granderson, you would think this would be his chance. If he's got a chance in this league, this would be Taco's chance. But I think it's not going to happen. But that's your depth chart at defensive end. At defensive tackle, and remember, we had one of the best defenses last year, top 5 scoring defense, and one of the best run defenses in the league. We continue to have one of the best run defenses in the league, and your starting defensive tackles for the majority of the season were David Onyemata and Shy Tuttle, the undrafted rookie Shy Tuttle. Behind them, Albert Huggins, who I believe was an undrafted rookie as well, got a chance to play early last year and looked very good. I was thinking Huggins might beat out Tuttle for the starting spot. Huggins looked so good, but then something happened. I think he got injured and he wasn't able to be featured very much last year. Malcolm Roach, however, an undrafted rookie as well, got a chance to play, and he shows up quite a bit when he's on the field. So to have undrafted guys or low round guys like Albert Huggins, Malcolm Roach, and Shy Tuttle show up and actually earn a spot on this team on a very, very good defense, it says a lot about our ability to scout defensive linemen and to find guys who can be productive. David Onyemata is he's written in ink. He's written in permanent marker as a starter. And Shy Tuttle, Albert Huggins, and Malcolm Roach have all shown that they can start and be pretty productive. The fact that they are undrafted guys leads me to believe that we could get better in the middle. So we brought in a few guys. We brought in Contavis Street as a free agent. We brought in Jaleel Johnson as a free agent. Both of them have starting experience in this league. They're both veterans. I think they're both at that age where you're expecting them to turn that corner, and they're going to get a chance to compete against undrafted guys to see if they can make this roster. Not to mention, of course, Jordan Jackson, who can play defensive tackle as well. So it's that middle of the defensive line that I really feel like we could have gotten better. In the second round, if we would have dressed defensive tackle, somebody who's a high draft pick, who you would expect to come in and beat out a Shy Tuttle or a Malcolm Roach or an Albert Huggins. But hey, if they can't, they can't. It's a great spot for Street and for Jaleel Johnson to take that next step and to show that they deserve to be starters in this league. If you can't beat out Shy Tuttle or Malcolm Roach or Albert Huggins, then that tells you you're either not as good as these undrafted guys, and maybe you don't deserve to be a starter, or it just shows you how good the Saints are at picking defensive linemen for those guys to be in the mix for this great defense on this pretty solid defensive line. So defensive tackle, not so much a concern for me. I just think we really could have addressed it and gotten better. The biggest concern on defense is at linebacker. We don't have a lot of linebackers. Now, we just signed 3 undrafted guys, and all 3 of them I had draftable grades on, so all 3 of them are going to get a chance to compete here. And a couple of them may actually make the team because you have some spots. Our starters are inked in as Demario Davis and Pete Werner, and Zach Bond, who plays that S linebacker. He's hot and cold. We spent a draft pick on him. I think we moved up to get him a couple of years ago. And sometimes in preseason, Bond's making all of the tackles. I see a lot of promise there, and he's had to make a lot of playing time this past year. And, I really didn't focus a lot on every play, down in and down out, but Bond didn't seem to be out of place out there. Our linebackers have been okay over the years. We've had great ones like the Dome Patrol. When Sean Payton first got here, our linebacking core was pretty decent. But we've also missed on linebacker a few times too. Bond is okay. But Pete Werner is the guy that we drafted last year that played pretty well. And he's going to be the main reason we don't re-sign Quan Alexander if we don't re-sign Quan, because Pete Warner's going to deserve this playing time. Demario Davis is all world and perennial Pro Bowler, and he's getting older, but let's look at the backups. Caden Ellis, Andrew Dowell for starters. Those guys show up. They show up on film. When they're on the field, they show up. The only reason I know Dowell's on the field or Ellis is on the field is because they're making the tackle, and they were really solid in preseason. Those guys are the ones that are going to have to lose their job to someone like a Sharif Finch or our 5th round draft pick this year, DeMarco Jackson, or any of the 3 undrafted rookies that are on the roster as well. But like I say, Ellis and Dowell have looked good at times. You're going to have to work real hard to beat those guys out. But overall, we could get a lot better at linebacker. If we see, continued progression from Ellis and Dowell, I think DeMarco Jackson has a strong chance of making this team, especially if he can perform on special teams. I know he's going to look good as a linebacker in this defense. I know he is. I have faith in DeMarco Jackson. So probably the weakest spot on the team, but not bad at all. And our obvious strength, the secondary. With Marshawn Lattimore being an all-pro and Paulson Adebo being a 3rd round pick last year who performed so well, he was able to secure that starting job ahead of the likes of Bradley Roby, who we traded for a 3rd round pick to acquire. Bradley Roby has a lot of starting experience in this league, and Roby's had to play a little bit last year in his first year with us, but he didn't see the field as much as he could have because of Paulson Adebo. So what we do is draft a cornerback in the 2nd round in Alante Taylor. and we say we're going to play him at cornerback. So he is going to challenge our third rounder, Adebo, from last year. And we're going to see if the second rounder from this year can beat out the third rounder from last year. I am not holding my breath. I think Paulson Adebo did great as a rookie. I think he's only going to get better. And the fact that the Saints drafted Taylor so high, maybe there's something about Adebo they know that I don't. But we re-signed Roby. We like the idea of having Roby on the team. Makes me think we like Adebo as a starter. And then we get Taylor. Hey, you can never have enough cornerbacks, right? We also re-signed P.J. Williams to another one-year deal. I think the guy signed 4 one-year deals in a row. P.J. Williams can play all over the secondary. He's listed here as an outside corner, but he can play lots of safety as well. We did sign some DBs this year as undrafted rookies. Dylan Mabin and Jordan Miller are guys that are already on the roster, and our undrafted DBs are going to have to compete with those guys to find a spot. They're also going to have to compete with the safeties. We lost Marcus Williams and uh, Malcolm Jenkins at safety, but we acquired Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu, the greatest LSU player I've ever seen, and who's had an all-decade career in the pros, is now coming home to New Orleans. He's going to be a Saint, and he's going to start with Marcus May as safety, and I think we're pretty good at safety when you look at those guys. We haven't seen it on the field yet, but I'm excited. C.J. Gardner Johnson is a Pro Bowl player, in my opinion. He's in his last year this year. He's going to cost us an arm and a leg, and he's probably going to demand cornerback money because the guy can do it all. He is one of the only players in the league who actually reminds me of Tyrann Mathieu. Very active, very productive. Daniel Sorensen is a veteran guy who can start, but plays special teams as well. And I think his job is going to be on the line along with Justin Evans and JT Gray. JT Gray is an amazing special teams player. And Daniel Sorensen is a special teams player. I don't know if he's an amazing special teams player. So even though Sorensen is penciled in higher on this depth chart, I don't think we get rid of JT Gray. He's too valuable in special teams. And all of those undrafted rookies are going to have to show up in a big way on special teams if they want to crack this roster. We're so deep in the secondary. Typically, a team will keep 8 players in the secondary. Sometimes you go 9. If you go 6 receivers, sometimes you go 9 DBs. Sometimes you go 5 receivers and 6 receivers and 8 DBs. But you're definitely going to keep Adebo, Mathieu, Mays, Lattimore, Taylor, Gardner Johnson, P.J. Williams. That's 7 right there. And Bradley Roby. That's 8. Those are, and JT Gray. That makes 9. Everybody else here have a hard time cracking this roster. We are so good in the secondary. So there you go. That's the breakdown of the defense. Our biggest weakness is backup linebacker, and I think we can get stronger in the middle of the defensive line. Our special teams are pretty etched in stone. Will Lutz, Blake Gillikin, and returner Deonte Hardy. And of course, our long snapper, Zach Wood, who will never play along the offensive line or at tight end for us, but we're going to have to keep a roster spot for him because he's our long snapper. We have some potential replacements or additions at returner. with the addition of Rashid or Shaheed, pardon me, as a returner. And we'll see how this goes. I think Deonte Hardy is capable of being our returner and highlighting at receiver. So if Will Lutz is back from injury and he's solid, he was one of the best kickers before. I have no reason to believe that we're going to struggle at kicker like we did so badly this past year. And I think Blake Gillikin should have made the Pro Bowl this year. Did he? He may have deserved to. And I think Blake Gillikin's going to become a high paid punter in this league when this rookie contract's over with. The man's an amazing punter. I mean, he rarely made a mistake last year. Such an important piece when you're talking about a team that's going to win with defense and with an offense that just doesn't lose the game for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Quite a long video, but I wanted to put the roster up, take a look at the depth chart, examine how our rookies can fit in. And I wanted to be one of the first to do this kind of a video. There you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Come back to the video, pull up the depth chart whenever you want, take a look at it, pause the video, reference to it. I'm telling you, it's easier than going to those sites that still have Teron Armstead on the depth chart. Come on, NewOrleansSaints.com. Come on, guys, get it together. I'm doing this stuff for fun. Someone's getting paid over there. Make sure they update that depth chart, please. I'm happy to do it for you guys. I'm Joe. Please subscribe to Rosenbelt 10 for more videos like this. And if you go to the playlist, I cover a lot of stuff, including entertainment, news, politics. If you're here just for the sports, you'll find everything about the Saints under the folder New Orleans Saints, and I'll be covering them all year long. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe, and I'll talk to you later. Who dat?